more regime change in Iran? Well, it seems like that would be the best thing that could happen. For 47 years, they've been talking and talking and talking. In the meantime, we've lost a lot of lives while they talk, and legs blown off, arms blown off, faces blown off. It's been going on for a long time.
That's President Trump on the potential for regime change in Iran as Washington and Tehran engage on a deal that would stave off military action against Ayatollah Khomeini's brutal regime. And as a U.S. armada is expanding in the Middle East after President Trump ordered the USS Gerald R. Ford and its escort ships to the region from the Caribbean Sea after taking part in the capture of former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro last month. The world's largest aircraft carrier will now join the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group, already positioned in striking distance to Iran. Meanwhile, at the UN, Iran was elected without objection as vice chair of the UN Commission for Social Development, which includes a focus on social justice and women's rights, if you can believe that one, as tens of thousands of protesters have reportedly been killed in Iran since the anti-Khomeini protests began just over 1 month ago, demanding freedom against the brutal regime. Joining me now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is His Royal Highness, the exiled Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, live this morning from the Munich Security Conference in Germany. Your Highness, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you, Maria, for having me again on your program.
And I want to begin in Munich because we are told 1 million people marched in support of you and regime change. What is your reaction to President Trump responding to a question saying it is time for regime change? And give us a sense of what went on in Munich this weekend.
Maria, first and foremost, I want to say how proud I am of my fellow compatriots at home and abroad. That shows an unprecedented show of unity and support for one another. My brave compatriots, despite the massacre that took place a couple of weeks ago, still came to the streets, still continued to protest, and millions of Iranians were in support of them on the outside world. Records were broken. Here in Munich, we had 250,000 people plus that participated. In Los Angeles, in Melbourne, Australia, all over the world. And the gold medal goes to our Iranians in Toronto, which really broke the record. Over 350,000 people, some say even over 500,000 people were in that demonstration that took place yesterday in solidarity. Look, the Iranian people's ask is very simple. They want liberty. They want freedom. And of course, I think President Trump realizes that when he said regime change might be the solution. This is something we've been asking for a long time. One thing I would simply add to what the president said when he says the regime has kept on talking and talking and talking. But the president should also know that they have also kept on killing and killing and killing. As we speak, Maria, the killing hasn't stopped. As we speak, there are people that are being executed in Iran. There are people that are being arrested and tortured in Iran. That hasn't stopped. And that's why an intervention is so necessary. Because the first ask of Iranians today at home and abroad is asking for help. This intervention is a humanitarian intervention to save lives that will otherwise also continue to be lost. This is how important and critical this intervention can be. And irrespective of the regime buying time to negotiate, which will never pan out because it's been a pattern of behavior by them that's simply buying time. Meanwhile, people in Iran are dying. And I hope the president realizes how urgent the intervention could save lives and also help us put an end to this unwanted regime.
How many people would you say have been killed in just the last month there in Iran for protesting against the regime?
The numbers that we have is a minimum of 36,000 people in the first 2 days. Some numbers are over 40,000. It's very difficult to calculate the full tally, but in the meantime, at least 40,000 people have been arrested. The number of people who have disappeared is yet to be completely realized. We had over 330,000 people who were wounded. In the meantime, the regime continues its killing by finishing people off on their hospital beds. They have coerced and they have threatened hospital workers and doctors. It's unbelievable, the level of atrocity that occurred in Iran. And I think the world now is realizing, thanks to social media, because as you know, internet has been disrupted and there's very little reporting done from Iran. But for what we see and what we gather, it is horrific what's happening. This is really on a scale unimaginable. And I think many people in the world today are showing their solidarity, not just normal people, but we're beginning to see legislators and government taking a strong stance. Chancellor Merkel here in Germany called this regime illegitimate. The foreign minister of Canada clearly stated a very strong words, and Europeans are beginning to join this momentum. This is huge for the Iranian people that we're finally getting acknowledged as being the victims, and the criminal behavior of the regime can no longer be tolerated.
Sir, you have positioned yourself as really the most recognizable face of the Iranian opposition as these protests continue. What do you want to say to skeptics out there who say the people are not polling that way and some people may not want to see a return to the former situation before Khomeini took over?
Maria, you and I have spoken many times on the subject, but for the benefit of those who may hear it for the first time, the plan that we have for the transition ends up ultimately with the Iranian people having a choice to determine their future by the means of the ballot box and free elections. What I offer as a transitional leader to that end is to galvanize and unify the opposition, the secular democratic opposition, irrespective of whether they are pro-constitutional monarchy or pro-republic, to be able to have a healthy debate over the subject, but allow the majority of Iranians decide what should be the future of Iran in a democratic process that will be completely transparent and under international observation. The only way to ensure that the people of Iran stand up to be counted is to guarantee a process of free election in the ballot box. I'm here to offer that bridge to that future. That's why people trust me, believe in my leadership, and are solidly standing behind me so I could do my job and provide that alternative. The choice is there to make. I'm not determining the outcome. I'm providing the means to that end.
The president has kept the pressure on by applying new sanctions recently. Are the sanctions working? And specifically, Your Highness, what do you want President Trump and the Trump administration to do now?
We have announced at least 6 measures that can be immediately taken, that it could include also what U.S. can do in terms of policy. So beyond the fact that an intervention to neutralize the regime repressive forces in terms of its crackdown on people, and most of it are IRGC elements and the regime's machinery of terror and repression, the prescription of the IRGC, of course, was huge. Now we see that Europe has finally joined that rank. That's one item. I think the ghost tankers, which is a revenue source for the regime, is important, so the regime can no longer pay its mercenaries or its war machine. I think expelling diplomats is something that will be very critical, and going after their criminal behavior or anything that goes back to crimes against humanity, freezing assets of oligarchs, moving their money outside, talking about the kind of internet support and supporting, that communication, asking for the unconditional release of all political prisoners in Iran. These are specific measures and ask that the world can put more pressure on the regime, but it will also show much more support to the Iranian people. And that should be an element that will expedite the process of hopefully getting rid of this regime, and finally Iranians can have an opportunity to speak for themselves.
Your Highness, thank you very much. We will be following this developing story very closely. We so appreciate your time. Exiled Iranian Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi.
Thank you, Maria.